What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Favale coming at you with my certified fantabulous co-host, Mr. Grant Hughes. We're here to talk about some NBA rookies, just the rookies that have stood out or some of the biggest names that we feel like we need to dole out grades for. This is our third grading podcast in like 2 weeks. This will not become a super staple, but it's like, all right, 15 plus games into the season feels like a good way to just package and deliver our overall evaluations of these rookies we've seen so far. We'll get into our criteria, of course, as to how we figure out these grades. But first and foremost, Grant, it's Thanksgiving week. Are you already in? We're recording this on a Monday morning. Are you already in Wednesday before Thanksgiving energy mode?
What is that energy level? Is that a high energy level or low?
If you've ever worked in like typical, like outside of retail where like people actually have to do work in corporate America, this whole week is just a disaster. Like, even look, you want peek behind the curtain, like as people who have deadlines, like we're working, but it's just like we know the people that like set the deadlines like probably aren't going to be around when we file them. So like I just, this week is always weird because everyone talks about how little work they get done, and I'm always just like, I'm not complaining. I don't feel that. No, and also we always have like the slate before Thanksgiving is so fucking crowded. So this is to say I'm highly caffeinated. If I get Wednesday before Thanksgiving energy, it's not right now. I'm so stoked to podcast with you again. I'm just super ramped up for this.
Also, thanks for heading off my "How are you doing?" question at the pass. I know you're doing great now. I'm doing well. I don't know what day of the Thanksgiving week energy level I'm at. I'm fairly caffeinated. You can always be more caffeinated, in my opinion.
And you can never be too caffeinated, in my opinion.
No, and until you're at the hospital with arrhythmia or whatever, you're in good shape. I'm excited to do this. The rookies this year. I mean, let's just get into it. This is, in a lot of ways, the rookie class we were promised. There have been some surprises and exceptions, but this does just feel like a group that, has. It's going to require a lot of eye test. I'll put it that way, because some of the numbers aren't great. So we'll get into it. But that's kind of the first thing I would point out coming in.
Right. And the way we approach this is we did try to focus on notable names people care about, even if they didn't necessarily play as much as we were expecting. That would be part of this. But we had some tough cuts needed to be made, because this is just not a podcast that needs to be 8 hours long. I think we end up talking about, I think we have like 20 rookies. We'll shout out some other ones that kind of like that we think are noteworthy, but we just didn't want to do deep dives on. Maybe we've covered their team a bunch already anyway. Mm-hmm. As we didn't do this when we were grading the old faces and new places. A C is like average relative to expectations. It's not a bad grade. If a rookie's getting a C, it means that he's basically holding up his end of the bargain in our eyes. Now, anything below that is where you want to kind of be worried. However, when it comes to rookies, I tend to be a little bit more generous. And to me, it's less about the grade, and I'm not throwing numbers out the window. We all have numbers and we all have observations, but these guys are let's say about 20 games into their career, fewer than 20 games into their career. So I'm not going to come out and be like, oh man, shooting 31% from three. That's an F.
Well, right. And the other complicating factor is like several of these guys, it's a small sample anyway, just because of where we are in the season, but it's also like some of them weren't in rotations and then are starting, and then some of them were, and then have their roles shrink or had injuries crop up. So it's like, even in like a 15, nobody's played more than 18 games. You might have 9 of those where it's like, well, this was the before and after point of his season where he actually started to play, or, actually was getting shots, like that kind of thing. So really, again, and I'm glad you pointed out or mentioned the relative to expectations. It's not like, there's going to be 1A and 1B and 1C and 1D and on down, and it's like a ranking of the rookies. That's not what this is. Like, if you're a mid-round pick or even a second rounder and you've outperformed expectations, like that's just going to get a better grade than a high pick that's been, has the counting stats, but like has played like as expected. If that, right? Like that's kind of how you look at it. It's not everybody's graded on the same scale, which feels unfair, but I don't think there's a better way to do it.
I will say what does become difficult though is because if they're not playing a ton, does that ding their grade? Unless you think that I can't get there, unless you think so. An example would be, and we will talk about him, Reed Sheppard. Mm-hmm. Do you grade him? Do you demerit him because he's not playing more and you think he has control over that and he hasn't impressed enough to get more minutes? Or is it, the Rockets are really good and deep. We've talked how many times about them just having so many dudes that you just grade him relative to the minutes that he's been on the floor, not the fact that this is the number 3 pick who is what? Is he even in like the top 25 of minutes played for rookies?
I know he's like 8th or 9th on his own team not among rookies, obviously, but like, yeah, he's on the fringes of like, of the rotation, basically.
We begin, Grant, the number 1 overall pick, Mr. Zaccharie Risacher. How you feeling about this kid?
Yeah, so he has definitely had the most consistent role, I would say, of any first year player. Number 1 overall pick, obviously. Only a handful of guys have played 400 minutes. He's one of them. He's got more starts than any other rookie this year. So he's, the Hawks are an okay team so far, kind of up and down, and he's had a starting role and decent, fairly consistent amount of minutes all year. Like that alone in a rookie class, like that's now your number 1 pick. That should probably be the expectation. But I think he's met that. Like he's been good enough to stay out there and, again, low usage. The shot looks good to me. Like he does shoot like a pretty easy ball. It's not going in. It's 25% from 3. That's bad if like your role right now is you're a connective passer who's going to make spot up shots and defend. He still looks. I understand why he went where he went in the draft. Like I can see the numbers aren't good, but the eye test stuff, like he just looks like a big wing that's going to be able to do a little bit of everything. And I do believe in the shot, even if the results haven't been there. So to me, like he didn't come build as like, oh, he's going to be a star, right? Like that was priced into him even being picked number 1. He's got a 33-point game. So, he's getting a couple steals. He looks okay in the passing lane. Just like he seems okay to me. He seems kind of like what you expected. And I have, maybe more importantly, I haven't seen anything where it's like, oh, I don't like he's not going to stick, or like he looks weak, or like that kind of, nothing jumps out as a glaring problem. So I'm mostly positive on him.
Yeah, I would be too. I think that he's been better than I even would have expected. And maybe I was just too low on the draft class overall. He's plug and play. That's basically what you described. Mm-hmm. I've been impressed with his movement, like because a lot of his stuff is going to happen away from the ball. He set some screens and he's looked pretty well in those situations. He is scoring, Grant, about the same number of movement points per 75 possessions as Jamal Murray and Klay Thompson. So he's like right in that area. And that's, look, they're not coming as efficiently, and it probably is more of a volume thing, but he's a rookie. And so you want to see the shooting percentages come up in the macro. I think defensively too, relative to the workload that they have him carrying, I've been mostly impressed there. I still don't know if he builds is like his path to stardom is there more self-creation on offense than we've seen, or is he just, he's super plug and play on the offensive end, and then he's like a caps lock stopper on defense. I don't know that I've seen evidence that I can view him as such, but like the pairing of him and Dyson Daniels long-term, super intriguing. And again, they're not like, I know Dyson Daniels is on this team, but like Zaccharie Risacher is getting reps against top guys. They're not insulating him. Like you're going to see him against Zach LaVine or Jaylen Williams, like just some of the matchups I'm remembering anecdotally.
That's a big part of it. It is like he is starting and playing a lot, and he's not being really hidden, in the ways like some of these rookies we're going to talk about are getting a lot of second unit minutes, and the competition you face is just worse and your role's not as big. So we've got them both in the B+ area. So I think like that may seem a little high, but I do think just considering like what he's asked to do, and like how he's looked relative to what we were told he'd be, he's just been like a good version of that player. Like the numbers will come up. He's super young too. He's one of the younger guys in the class. So think about that too.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing here. And it could be just in his role. Like if you're not guaranteed a consistent number of touches within Atlanta's pecking order, even with, and look, the point guard situation aside from Trae Young isn't great right now. Like you have kind of a by committee thing happening. Bogdanovich missed a ton of time. We've seen Dyson Daniels handle it a bit, and he's someone who, as of right now, for sure, like you'd like steadier point guard play overall around him. Our next guy up, Mr. Hughes, Tidjane Salaun, kind of a mystery box leading into the draft. I think some people were surprised that the Hornets ended up taking him where they did, which that was number 6, right? That wasn't 8. Yeah, that was 6.
Yes.
What have been your impressions of him?
So like really good size, not necessarily for a center, which is where he has actually spent a little bit of time, because every guy that could possibly play center that's played for the Hornets this year keeps getting hurt. Grant Williams, the latest to go down, tough break, like major knee injury, ACL, and some other stuff. Mark Williams out, Nick Richards out, Taj Gibson is on this team. Salaun, to me, as a forward, like the frame is there, and he's very young too. Like he's pretty filled out. Like you can see a level of physicality, competitiveness. Like I've even seen him like get into it after, some perceived shoves underneath the boards. Like he'll confront guys. The 3-point attempt rate is high. The conversion rate is low. Like he's such a project, right? Which is exactly what we were told he'd be. So I don't know. I think some of the numbers are kind of like concerning, but just looking at him on the floor, I can see the vision. It's just a long, long way off, to where he's eventually a pretty multi-skilled combo forward type that can be really physical and maybe shoot the three. But like we haven't seen anything close to the high production level yet.
Yeah, he's just like chaos in bodily form. Like the energy is there, and you love the way that he's going to get up and down the floor. He's actually done a really good job of drawing shooting fouls in transition. But I think this is someone that you should have expected to be a project. And I think you could argue that he wasn't supposed to have as much of a role as he does now if it wasn't for some of the injuries up and down Charlotte's roster. So he's probably, I think I see the vision of him more as a player, to where it's just like, oh, this sort of like bigger wing size guy who could be a play finisher. You've been able to move him around defensively. I went with a C+ here because I think even just by virtue of playing as much as he has so far, he's probably exceeded my expectations.
Yeah, I got him right there. I have him as a C. It's just like, he's projectable. Like I can understand the appeal. It's just very, very far off. And I think like that's basically his draft scouting report. Like, yeah, there's something in there, but it's going to be a while.
You want to lead us through this next guy, Mr. Hughes?
Yeah, this is Modest Buzelis for the Chicago Bulls. So we had like, it's always interesting when you get a G League Ignite guy, because you sort of have what feels like, I don't know why I think this, but it's like, oh, he shot it this way for the Ignite, and like, or he played this way or had this turnover issue or whatever. Somehow that feels more predictive or more useful than college numbers. He shot 22% from three last year in the G League, and so that was a big concern coming in. Like good athlete, good size, like rangy. I don't know. You see him 6'9" or 6'10", depending on where you look. Good in the open floor. He's already got a handful of like highlight dunks that have been impressive, mostly just kind of with a clear runway. Super competitive, like wants to dunk on people, which is another part of his like pre-draft profile, is that he's like very confident, like just like that kind of thing. So this is probably a couple games old. Through his first 15 games old, just to keep it accurate, just under 35% from three. So that's solid. But he was 8 of 23. That's a small, he's not getting them up, and he's not playing a ton. I think just the open floor stuff, the hints that maybe he's a guy that could develop some, like just beat his man out of a triple threat type of thing, and maybe develop into a guy who can shoot it, off the catch, off movement. Again, he's a little like Salaun. Is like, I can see it. He's got more ball skills and stuff than Salaun does, but so I think I've been encouraged by the flashes, but we just don't. I mean, as you're talking, I'm going to look up his minutes. Like he's not getting.
So yeah, he was. I didn't even mean to have you. So I think he's been better than I expected, just because he hasn't played a ton. I didn't expect him to play a ton because the Bulls are all over the place. Getting some more run over the past couple games. When I kind of looked at him, I expected the shooting percentages to be all over the place. But I want to know if there was going to be enough on-ball flashes, which I think there have been. He also runs the floor really well. I don't know if this is someone who's going to generate ever blow-by separation, but he can play. Like he gets separation with that shoulder, like when he's able to pull back. And so I see the outlines of a player. And then I think he's just been like, he's made more plays at the rim than I would have expected to see from him this season, even in the small minutes prior to his most recent 2 games. And if that's someone that he can be, just like an offensive complement who's going to make some plays on the defensive end, by the way, his block rate, 4.8, like just as a rookie, and who's like at, what is he, 6'9"? Is he even listed at that high? So I fave it. For his grade, I went with a B. I think that maybe I'm a little bit too, maybe the past 2 games, because I've seen a lot of the Bulls have maybe tilted me more towards, oh, this is the high end. But I'm also looking at it from the perspective of, I didn't really expect him to do anything this year because they just have so many bodies.
Yeah, I got him at a C+. I think, he's been kind of what we thought so far. Actually, a lot of these guys have basically lived up to their pre-draft billing in a lot of ways. So he's just been a little better. The flashes have been a little more intriguing to me than maybe I expected them to be.
Next up, what are your thoughts on Ron Holland, sir?
Man, the low light of the year, those 2 free throws he missed that could have essentially staved off overtime and got the Pistons a win against, I think it was the Bucks. Then the next night out goes 4-4 from the foul line. I don't know if you saw a clip of those missed free throws, but they were both like the barely grazed the front of the rim, short, like nervousness kind of thing. So glad he got over that and moved past that. the athleticism, the defense, and the inability to shoot are kind of all there. So we've sort of got another guy that's kind of aligning with his, pre-draft stuff. If he could just hit a few more threes, I'd feel really good about it. I still think, like, I understand why some people were really, really high on him. He competes really hard on defense. Like, all that stuff is really pretty clear in the early going. So I like him. It's just like, can the Pistons draft a guy whose principal question isn't about shooting? Like, it just makes we just got Jaden Ivey seems okay now. We've still got Thompson. We've still got Holland.
Well, isn't Troy Weaver technically still a consult with the organization, or he transitioned into that role? So the answer to your question is no, they can't. Like, that just, as long as he's associated with them, they need to draft those types of players. Maybe Troy Weaver isn't with them anymore. What is he? No, he's an advisor for the Wizards. I apologize. So I'm behind on the times on that. So the shooting, we knew it was going to be a concern. And when I watch him shoot, I feel like, okay, this is someone who can shoot better than he's at 10% now on catch and shoot threes. Yeah. So I don't hate the way the jumper necessarily looks. He's had some really good moments in transition. He's drawing shooting fouls 18.9% of the time in transition. That's a good rate. And even look, the handle I can kind of see there, and he's hit some like these runners, floaters. Like, he's not really taking a ton of floaters, but like, he can score before he's getting to the basket. The thing that I think actually concerns me the most, and he does feel like a guy who will fight on defense and is hard to screen. I just feel like, and I don't know if this is by virtue of when he's playing, because he's only started one game this season, it feels like they've insulated him more defensively than you would have expected, and even would like, when Sarr Thompson is yet to play as we record this. And so I haven't seen, and maybe that's by design, but I haven't seen as much as just, okay, Ron Holland, go match up with star X. And again, I know because of the way that the Pistons are, when he's coming into the game, that's not necessarily intuitive, but I've been impressed, and he certainly has like the hands, and he can be disruptive on the defensive end. But I would like to see him in higher leverage situations.
Yeah, he's definitely, to your point, like he and Reed Sheppard are the only rookies, I think, who've played 18 games as we record this. He's like in the top 15 in minutes. Yeah, he's 15th in total minutes. So like, he's playing every night, but you're right. Like, he just isn't. It would have been nice if they just said, like, you don't worry about offense at all. Just go guard Jason Tatum like that. And he has guarded like some of the higher, usage guys, but I agree. Like, you may as well just, because he's going to be good at that. I think if we don't know what the offense is going to look like, if the shot's going to fall, I do think defensively, like, as long as gives a shit, he's going to be a plus defender. Like, that's just, I feel like that's fairly certain. So I gave him a B-. You have a C. I think it's anything in like the C- to like B+ range is defensible, just because he's, again, the numbers are terrible, but does he look like an NBA wing or not? Like, yeah, I think he does.
We have Reed Sheppard next, my rookie of the year pick, who, spoiler alert, is not going to win rookie. And I said this in spite of not only being warned by people that he wasn't going to play a ton, but us acknowledging that he probably wasn't going to play a ton. But I went the route of, he's going to be so undeniable, he's going to end up playing enough minutes. How's that looking for you?
Same opinion. I didn't care about the glut of young guys and guards and different combos that you had to try out with Houston. I just thought he'd be so good in so many different ways, right? Because we saw in summer league and preseason, like, oh, that floater is going to fall, or, oh, look, that handle, he's getting to the spots he wants to. So we don't need him to shoot 50+% from three like he did in college. Like, he could be a creator. He can be like a paint scorer. He can be a guy who's going to get a ton of steals and hold up, an individual. There are so many ways for him to get out there. And the thing is, like, he's kind of showed all that stuff. It's just, he's not getting on the floor, and his role is never a big one. Like, it's very rare for him to be in a like anything close to an alpha offensive position. Maybe that's not his role, but like, that's suppressing the numbers. The percentages are good. He's 38.5% from three. He's got 10 steals in 18 games, and that's his small role. Like, he's doing stuff.
His defensive activity, and I know they're kind of built to let him do that, but it's been a lot higher than I would have expected. I'm disappointed he's not playing more, but I see the outline of someone who aside from like, okay, the defensive activity has been better than I expected. Shooting 40% on above the break threes is a great indicator for him. I really do think that this is someone who could be the primary engine of an offense, though. He's shown it a little bit, not running a ton of pick and rolls, but 1.05 points per possession out of the pick and roll as the ball handler. That for a rookie, even in the type of lineups he's going up against, that's great. Because look, Houston's offense is kind of, it is getting wins, and they have had nights where they're really good. I do not understand Houston's offensive hierarchy at all. And so to be kind of thrown into that, where you're not getting a ton of like regular minutes, like you could even look at his minutes, like, 11 minutes here and 16 minutes there. Oh, there were 7 minutes there or whatever it was. I don't want to say I'm coming away higher on Reed Sheppard, but I think in this situation, it would be easy to be concerned that he has not figured out a way to carve out more minutes. And maybe we see that later in the season, although Houston profiles as a team that will be playing for real stakes. I haven't seen anything, though, that would move me off of believing that he's going to be the best player in this draft class.
Oh yeah. I mean, we both said that, didn't we? I think that's fair.
Well, to be fair, I did have Cody Williams number 1 on my big board. That's not.
We will discuss him briefly at some point. We both gave him a B. I think like part of that is just not wanting to move off of our priors of this guy's, God's gift to basketball. And part of it is like, he really has kind of done what we thought he would do. It's just, he's not getting the opportunity to play quite as much as we hoped.
And by the way, the Rockets are good enough to where you can't.
Oh yeah.
You can't ding them for that, because they do need more consistent spacing, which he would provide. But when you look at the guys they're playing, I mean, Cam Whitmore spent time in the G League this season. That is not necessarily something, and maybe you could have seen it coming when looking at their depth chart. What are the Rockets supposed to do here?
Yeah.
Our next guy, Mr. Hughes. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of him. Dalton Knecht plays for the Lakers.
So do we need to, I mean, we don't need to, but it's annoying when partisan fans of a team who talk up every player they have get to do the "I told you so" when they're right occasionally. And that is very much the case with Dalton Knecht, because we were both of the mind that like, oh yeah, this rookie that's coming in is going to play a huge role. And
he's
really
going to be better than Taurean Prince for you.
Rookies never help. It's just, the best he could do is be a break-even player. He's been awesome. I mean, he's on the radar of everybody now. Like, he's a quality starter that can space the floor, is smart, like knows where to be. He's kind of another good like example of guys that will, stay in school. You get these fully developed prospects. Why do these guys always fall in the draft? They're ready to help. And like, he's just validated all that. Now, the only negative you can offer is like, maybe he's not going to get all that much better. Like he is very old for a rookie. And like this just, there's not a ton of upside, but that's not what this grade is about. This grade is about how well has Dalton Knecht played relative to expectations. And unless you're just like in your purple and gold onesie 24 hours a day, like he's exceeded your expectations. I would say certainly has mine. Shot the shit out of it.
Whose expectations has he not exceeded? I want to know what they thought he was going to be.
I mean, there's got to be some fraction of Lakers fans that were like, yep, I'm a little surprised he's only shooting like 45% from three.
I kind of thought this was going to be like the second coming of Steph Curry meets JJ Redick meets Desmond Bain. I don't know. Also, my thoughts on him kind of align with what you were saying. The movement is divine and not really an element that the Lakers, you could say JJ Redick came in and implemented more of it, but they didn't even have someone on the team last year. And yes, unless you think Max Christie is that type of player that you could kind of just plug in here and say, well, hey, do that. He runs the floor really well. He's shooting 77% at the rim. He's also been in the 63rd percentile in points scored per possession off screens. The two things that I think have surprised me is because he's not like a super fast player, even when he's on the ball, but like he's been able to attack some aggressive closeouts, get to like a floater runner type, and that shot is in his bag. I did not, over time, maybe I thought, but I wouldn't have predicted like, no, this is just someone who just really needs to, get up threes, and that's all he's going to do. And I don't think he's a good defender. He's been harder to screen or to take out of plays than I thought when you go back and watch him. Now, before I reveal the grades, do you think there's any hint of, because let's try to be a little self-aware. I think some fan bases get frustrated where it's like, well, it's because this dude plays for the Lakers. And if he was on Charlotte or if he was on, I don't know, like Portland or something, he wouldn't be getting as much love. Do you think there's any of that at play here? Or are we playing the, like, look where this guy was drafted? It's like, what are you like?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say there's no like Lakers bump or whatever the issue is, but like just take the team out of it and say there's a rookie that has taken over a starting job next to superstars on a big market team that's trying to win now. He's got a 67 true shooting percentage, and like it looks like he understands what to do on both ends. Like that's going to be a high grade, whether you play for the Lakers or anybody. So I don't know how you divide. It's like kind of indivisible. He does play for the Lakers, so that's going to skew a lot of thoughts, or just at least put him in the public eye more than other players would for other teams. But like, he's just been objectively great. Like that's, so I got an A+. I don't know what else do you want him to do for a mid-round pick?
I went with an A because he didn't get LeBron lying about his pre-draft thoughts on him until like game, I don't know if it was like 12 or something. And that just feels a little late here. I did find that funny. And I love LeBron. He's my GOAT, but it's just where he has to speak in hyperbole. And it's just so funny where he's like, we didn't find him. Other teams fucked up.
Right. Which is like, that's like a shot at your team in a way. It's like, all right, yeah.
I mean, like this, honestly, this front office has found talent. I'm not going to give credit to Rob Pelinka specifically. I'm sure he has the scouting department, deserves a ton of credit here. They've found guys, like dating back to guys that they've let walk that shouldn't, or moved that they shouldn't have.
That's true.
They've been able to identify talent. So this isn't necessarily surprising, but he's been, I'm just wondering, is there like, do you think that this is someone who should be like, okay, closing unit member, pencil it in stone, like Dalton Knecht?
Kinda. I mean, it'll be interesting when Rui comes back, because whenever he misses time, it's like, man, the Lakers are really missing that bigger wing, and so like,
and it's like, what happens when Jared Vanderbilt? Maybe he'll be healthy at some point.
Man, how long have we been saying that? I think Knecht is just like, he's a good starter that has a premium skill. You know how I love the premium skills. He's just a great 3-point shooter.
I don't remember how many teams have multiple rookies that we're going to go through, but I can assure you the Memphis Grizzlies are one of them. And we had to narrow it down to 2, despite them having like, what is it, like 12 that we could have chosen from?
So many, yeah.
Mr. Zach Edey, Grant, how we feeling about him?
Pretty much as advertised. He's out right now, but when on the floor, he just gives you the size, the offensive rebounding, the physicality, like all that stuff, and also that comes with it is like, yeah, it is kind of hard sometimes in space on defense for him, and like, I don't know like what ultimately his offensive role should be. He does have like very good touch, and those little hooks that he shoots are like, I think he is someone that can score. If it were 25 years ago and like post-up centers were still a major thing, like I think he would just, he's kind of in the wrong era, I guess, but he does have more, you'd say like unconventional skills for a guy his size than I thought. But just good, high rebound rate, block shots is a big deterrent in there. It's just kind of pretty much what we thought, right? Like, and like, again, he's another guy that he was thrust into a big role early. He's got more experience than some other guys, but still, like I'm mostly encouraged. He's another one though. I don't know, like kind of in the mold of Knecht, of like how much better is Zach Edey going to get, and how much better do the Grizzlies need him to be? Maybe that's a better question.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm not concerned at all. Some of the foul stuff, I actually thought that's been like a bigger issue than I would have expected. The other thing that I'm kind of just wondering, and I don't know if this is they're doing this specifically for Zach Edey or if this is how they want him to develop, but like over 4 post-ups per 36 minutes just feels high given the direction of the game, and just like what type of mismatches are you looking for him to punish? And especially when I know the Grizzlies offense is still at its best when it's in transition or after they're grabbing an offensive rebound, which by the way, Zach Edey is a really big part of that. But I also find myself wishing sometimes when he's grabbing an offensive board that he would make a better decision with the ball there. So like their second chance offensive rating is fine. It's through the roof, but he's not shooting as well in putbacks as I would have expected. Again, I remain super high on him. And I think anyone who thought he couldn't necessarily hold up defensively in this, teams are shooting like more of their shots at the rim when he's on the court. I don't know how much of that has to do if they're going to get out in transition or if Zach Edey is just going to be too far in front of certain plays. But I think he's eventually going to be someone you look at, like he's a big deterrent on the interior, and he doesn't look physically or mobily overmatched in a lot of games, at least that I've seen.
And I think, tiny sample, 6 of 10 from 3. And like the ball comes out pretty good. I think he has good touch around the rim and on full, shorter hooks and stuff like that, as I mentioned. So there's like there is a Brook Lopez possibility here. Like, I think, if
He
you
is,
can,
by the way, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, but just like you mentioned, Brook Lopez, he's contesting it's over 42% of all shots at the basket when he's on the court. And just for context, that's like about on the level of a Jared Allen. It's
yeah,
like,
no,
that's a good number to be at as a rookie, especially if teams are kind of actively looking to get you away from that area.
Yeah, so I could see he's a drop coverage big that maybe develops some 3-point shooting and can it will be a better rebounder than Lopez for sure. So like there's a vision here. So I gave him a B, just because I was really legitimately worried that like he can't move. Like, he's not the speed of the game's too much. He's going to be a target. I don't think that's going to be the case. So I'm a little higher on him now than after he was drafted.
I feel like maybe I should go up from a C plus just because of you mentioned he is 6 of 10 from 3, but I kind of expected him to be doing even more.
Yeah,
On
you'd like
offense,
more.
which is weird. Yeah. So, and the defense has been, again, I think he's going to be fine to really good on that end. Another Memphis Grizzlies rookie though here, Grant, Mr. Jaylen Wells, who now we talked about doing this exercise in September. Do you think that you thought we were going to have an individual segment on Jaylen Wells?
I would have, yeah. It just, I don't know. Is he the most? We haven't gone all the way through, but like, gotta be the most out of nowhere huge rookie contributor, right? There's just no one else. Everybody else was you knew the name at least. I don't think Wells was on almost anybody's radar as like a starting caliber wing. 50% plus from the field, 40% from deep. He has the wing size, can defend. Like really, I've mentioned this every time we've talked about him, which the fact that we've talked about Jaylen Wells multiple times in the first month of the season, I think speaks to what he's done. He's second among rookies in total minutes played, by the way. That's a factor. But he just defensively, like he competes, and there's the second effort stuff. That's the part I always mention, which is, again, there's not a stat for that. It's just you watch him play, and like he really does have the game that you could project forward as like this guy's a two-way wing that can do a little bit with the ball on his own too. Like that's just kind of a bonus, but got over 30 assists. That's up there high, certainly among rookie wings. Shoots the ball well, doesn't play outside himself, like all those cliches. It's just like, this is just a very good NBA wing that it was, I don't know, a draft afterthought to me, like was just someone that was projected as like the 30 or 40th best prospect in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, we probably just should have known that there were going to be injuries in Memphis and he would just play a shit ton. At this point, it should have, but like opening up the year, basically, Vince Williams and Gigi Jackson are just out of the rotation. Like just knowing that even before the season started, maybe he should have been more on our radar. I would echo everything you said. The two things that have stood out that I think you like just didn't, well, you mentioned his defense. He is guarding number one options more often than anybody else on the Grizzlies. And by the way, like the Grizzlies don't suck on defense. And so like to have a rookie shouldering that type of workload and then to not suck on the defensive end, hey, that's pretty big deal. And then the shooting, like the 3-point shooting has been divine. Also like quietly 47% on pull-up twos. It's like, no, not someone you necessarily want operating with the ball a ton. But like, are we about to have the conversation? Like I kind of thought we might have had it with Gigi Jackson this year, but it's, have the Grizzlies kind of found like a wing, a properly sized wing of the future where it's not like Vince Williams, he's 6'4", but he kind of plays like he's 6'8", or Marcus Smart when they traded for him, kind of the same deal. So to now have two of those guys, if and when Gigi Jackson is healthy, that's like not insignificant for this team because they've needed a wing since like Rudy Gay.
Right. Oh man, it's really true. Yeah.
And I think some Grizzlies fans at the time would have argued even before that, like before you actually moved Rudy Gay. I think this was the easiest grade I gave out. A+.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the second rounder. A+. No, like, I don't know what else could you possibly have asked for him to do?
Devil's advocate this. Can you? I can't. We are on to Rob Dillingham. So he has not played a ton. He did help lead the charge in that comeback against the Celtics that winds up falling short on Sunday night. I look at him. I look at the state of Minnesota's roster at this point. When you look at Mike Conley missing games, Mike Conley not playing up to snuff. And I just sort of find myself wondering, and we also know, by the way, like this has been a big topic of what you gave up to get him, even if you considered him a longer term project. And I think we're getting to the point where it's like, does maybe Chris Finch, like this is, you unearthed something against Boston when he plays a whopping total of 16 minutes, scores 14 points, shoots 6 of 10 from the floor. Like it might just be time to have the conversation, especially if this is the version of like, think about how up and down healthy Mike Conley has been, who's talked a lot about having to find himself on the team, then dealing with a wrist injury. It's probably time to unwrap Rob Dillingham more often. And I think before I throw it to you, just my initial thoughts, like this is even before the Celtics game, defenses react to him. Like there's real on ball zip there. So like just try him more. And he's shooting like 5 of 8 on drives, that not like 5 of 8. He's actually shooting 5 of 8 off of his drives. So he's like, when he gets into the paint, like there's a real reaction and he can be a little bit frantic. But like when I watch Minnesota's offense in the half court, sometimes they can kind of use that like frenetic energy because Julius Randle, I do feel like he's been pretty bad. It's interesting seeing Timberwolves like try to reconcile like what like Randall's transition defense or lack thereof. And so it's like kind of, first time meme for them. But like he's going to give you more of just like the word is probably zip to where Julius Randle's going to be more methodical. He'll want to bully his way down there. I know Rob Dillingham's a little smaller. He's slighter. But like you might just need that quick connectivity. And I don't think we've seen it yet as much. Like this dude will get off the ball. I probably want to see him like be a little bit more variable when he does get going downhill and like either throw like more complicated passes or just like not try and just be so determined to score, which by the way, if he's in the game, that might just be what you want from him is the on-ball creation. I'm just sort of wondering, hey, like this might just be a lever you need to pull more often at this point. I know that defense has probably been a bigger concern for the Timberwolves overall, but like surviving the minutes offensively without Anthony Edwards remains a concern. I don't think Dillingham is ready to do it, but is there something there where it's not necessarily punt on defense, but can you get enough out of him in units without an Anthony Edwards to kind of prop up your offense a little bit more, which finally you are in the 25th percentile of offensive efficiency when Anthony Edwards is not on the court.
Yeah, I would say I think I agree with all that. I do think he just needs to play more. That Celtics game was the first one all year he played more than 10 minutes. And like there were a lot of low single digit nights where it's pure garbage time. I think there's room for all of the stuff we thought when the Wolves gave up what they gave up to get him. There's room for that stuff to still pan out, which is to say they did this because Conley's getting older. They want more playmaking and scoring. And that's like what Rob Dillingham does. That's kind of all he like defensively. It's going to be an issue, but I agree. It's just like this is a team that needs what he does well in theory. And I think it's time for him to have larger stretches of minutes to prove that he can do that. His per 36 numbers, 17 and 5, his shooting splits are nuts. So those are all very small samples. He shot it great. I guess like up until that Celtics game where you saw him actually play, it was really confused. Like, why did you give up 2 first-round assets for this guy? We're trying to win now. Like he provides in theory what you need. Like, why do that if he's not going to play? And now maybe we're kind of tipping over that point of he's going to play.
But it's what happens when Mike Conley's suiting up is also the like,
yeah. I will say too, in that Celtics game, he had a play where it was semi-transition and he's kind of caught between Jason Tatum at the top of the 3-point arc. And I forget who was on the wing, but he like stunted at Tatum. Tatum has the ball, stunted at Tatum and leaves the ball and goes to like cover the wing that he thought Tatum was going to pass to. And they were talking about it on the broadcast. Tatum had to have been like, are you serious? Like you're just leaving. He left Jason Tatum alone for an open 3 at the top of the arc. And it was just like rookie. That's just, it was rough.
This is sort of like, it's not a perfect analog for Denver, but it was leading. We'll have to see what happens in the games moving forward and how his minutes are distributed. But it is a tough balancing act to prioritize development when you're looking to contend for a title. And then they threw this mega trade basically during training camp where wasn't it not approved until like 5 or something days into training camp, however long it took.
Yeah.
So
because there's 50 teams ultimately, or is there a bunch of machinations?
But it kind of leads you back to the point, like, well, what was the thought process throughout all of this? And it made me think like, okay, does Chris Finch and like the front office, like need to kind of get, and Tim Connelly need to get together and like, what's the plan here? And it's something to monitor moving forward because you gave up real stuff and you can say it's a long-term game, but when you're not as good as you wanted to be in the short term, then how do you juggle that? Is he the answer or do you steer even further clear of him when you're at full strength? I just like, as someone who could punish switches in the half court, he might just be better to do that like than a Julius Randle at this point.
Right.
He's going to be slower. He's looking to bully people. And like this guy just zip is the word that I'm going to continue to use.
Well, and who other than Ant is going to just cook his guy and get 2 feet in the lane and make a decision? It's like, it doesn't really happen if it's not him. So Dillingham can do that. He's just got to play. For so many reasons, he's got to play.
I went with a C. You went with a a D plus. Look, I don't even know how to grade him when he's being used. I didn't expect him to be used a bunch. Meanwhile, I thought Reed Sheppard was going to be so undeniable on a deeper team that he would play. But I kind of thought they were going to run into this issue despite, especially post trade. I was like, okay, well, what's going to happen here? I had thought that he would just have the inside track before that trade on. Oh, he'll have to play somewhat regularly, but it felt like between Dante DiVincenzo and then Julius Randle, it was going to be a struggle to get the courts. This has about been as I expected. If you're looking specifically like his role combined with the minutes he's played, it's probably still been as expected. Some of the issues are the issues to be concerned about, even if he had a larger role.
Yeah, I thought he was going to play a lot. I thought he was going to have a major role. I mean, I would say this feels unfairly low to give him a D plus, but I would say he's got about as much room to bump that grade up as anyone we've talked about, just because like the numbers are good when he does play. Like he can be a productive offensive player. I just kind of holding it against him that he didn't make himself undeniable, and he came in as an asset that like you would assume would have a big role and just hasn't. So as that changes, I think this grade will come up.
Next up, we have Mr. Jared McCain. This was also, maybe this was the easiest grade I gave out between him and Jamal.
I mean, just
we even need no suspense.
It's an A plus. Like other than Knecht, like who are you even just from a productivity standpoint? Not saying Jared McCain or Knecht has the highest ceiling in this draft, or they'll be regarded as one of the 5 best guys in the class. But from what he's done so far, it's like what's the devil's advocate case against him? It took him too long to get a huge role. Like that's on the Sixers. That's not on him.
Yeah, I mean, he can do so much on the offensive end. Like he can work on the ball, he can work away from the ball. The thing that's standing out to me is we have to wonder, can they get minutes with him and Tyrese Maxey have not gone well this year. Yep. Minus 13.9 net rating, 21st percentile of offense. But the offense is in the 70th percentile when he's on the court without Embiid and Maxey. And so I'm wondering if as Jared McCain, not something the Sixers were thinking, but like, okay, has he sort of, if they're ever at full strength, like we have a staggering pattern now. Like we can tether McCain to Paul George in the offense, because Paul George he's always been a good secondary guy, but as he's gotten older, it's been all right. He's more of like a 2-5 or like an actual number 2 rather than he needs to be the number 1, even in some of these like tertiary units themselves. But you look at Jared McCain's efficiency, 47.5% on catch and shoot threes, 51.6% on pull up 2s when he can kind of get from that in between area. He looks really good navigating things and poised going downhill. I'm curious to see both in the short term and long term, what is this guy as a playmaker? Because you can see it in moments, but it feels like, particularly with the live dribble, that he has room to do more of that. And maybe that would make him more unpredictable to defenses. But this wasn't something like people were probably talking about him more so as a salary ballast in a trade this coming season. And, he's a first round pick, technically, in that vein, more than he might actually contribute to the Sixers.
Yeah. I guess I would say it's a great problem that the Sixers have to start thinking about, like, is the Maxey McCain backcourt too small to start for a contender? It's like, okay, that's what we're talking about with Jared McCain now, after where he was drafted and what expectations were. Now, there were people that were high on him just because in a draft that didn't have a ton of really obvious, like, this is a projectable shooter / scorer. He did seem like one of those, but the size was iffy. It's like he's one of the, really, like, would you say he's like shooting guard sized and maybe a little under that? Like that's, that's a tough like archetype, really. There's not a lot of success on great teams where that guy, maybe Donovan Mitchell is someone, but he's got the length and the athleticism that McCain really doesn't. It's hard to find comps that have been successful. That's beside the point. Like he made 40 of his 100 3-point attempts. Like that's a lot of shooting for a guy that really was not playing a ton. He's only started 6 games. It seems impossible, but like he's just been one of the 2 best rookies all year. It's just him or Knecht. Whatever your preferred flavor is, I think both of them are more than willing or more than deserving of the highest grade we can give.
Do you think, really quickly, like what is a role? Like it's just sort of because the availability has been so all over the place, but like, is there a path to him continuing to stand out when you have Embiid, George, and Maxey? Like, can you play all 4 of those guys together in real volume?
I mean, I think just his shooting is like, you got to at least try it. I think because you limit him and you kind of, you put a cap on like how productive and helpful he can be. If you just kind of say, you're going to be more of a spot up threat, that's just going to be what you're doing. But you have to try it. Cause I mean, if you're just trying to get your best players on the floor, presumably when everyone's healthy, like, isn't he their fourth best player, or is he at least he's one of their five best? So he's got to play. What sucks is with guys like him, I always just I do this with Matherin all the time. It's like, he's going to be a good six man, or, with the weird combo guard size guys that are, offense first, that aren't primary shot creators. It's like, oh, he's a bench guy. I don't think it's way too early to say anything definitive about McCain, but like, if that's the outcome where he just comes in and is in charge of the offense against reserves, like, that's still a great result for where he was picked.
It's just, even if he has a pathway to much more, which, like you said, it's too early, but it does, like, projecting forward, having Maxey, like, it does gum up the trajectory a little bit. But again, maybe he improves defensively, because right now he's had some pretty bad moments on the defense. But again, he's a rookie and he's not especially big. Next rookie, Mr. Ryan Dunn. Hughes. How you feel about him? Why'd I just call you Hughes?
I don't know. I love it.
Never last name you like that before?
It's like you're mad at me. So had we done this, 3 weeks ago, the grade would have been better. Come back to earth as a shooter. Still, though, it doesn't feel to me like we're in danger of being a couple of years down the road and saying, hey, remember wasn't it funny when Ryan Dunn, we thought he was going to be like a 40% shooter and he's at 19% since then? It's like, I don't know that he's going to be a plus shooter. I still am, very much moved by the growth that he's made from coming out of college. Is just like, this guy has got nothing from the perimeter. He's down into the low 30s. I think he's 33% last time I looked, but still is one of the best defensive players in this class, is capable of guarding multiple positions, can close, especially if he's going to hit threes. So I guess he still has to be regarded as exceeding expectations, because the shot was really there for a while and still seems like it can be at least at like a passable level to keep. It's like good enough to keep his defense on the floor is what I'd say, which is really, like, that was not a given when he was drafted.
No, and I think even there are moments where it doesn't look like this, but his best moments, like, there's a rhythm to the way that he is taking threes. And so if you can make opponents pay to, like, because there are just going to be people that, even if he's shooting and he's sub 32% on wide open threes, even if he was shooting 40% on wide open threes, teams still aren't going to care about him relative to the other threats on the court and other actions that they're going to be trying to stop. But if you're, like, kind of taking them in rhythm, there's still going to be people that'll gamble on it in the playoffs, but then he becomes a player where it's like, oh, he just nailed like 5 threes that game or something. So I have more hope there. The defense has been mostly as advertised. I kind of hope that some of I think it speaks more to the Suns' like makeup of the roster. I kind of hoped when it was the Dunn Durant, and obviously Durant's been banged up, but when it was the Dunn Durant, like, that was sort of the archetype of your front court. I was hoping those units would fare a little bit better than they have thus far. But again, we're talking about leaning on a rookie. Bradley Beal is the only player on this team, which, like, kudos to Bradley Beal. He's the only player who defends number one options more often than Ryan Dunn right now. I'm very curious to see how his role is impacted when Phoenix is, 1, fully healthy, 2, post-trade deadline, when I assume they'll make, like, upgrades in the front court. I assume. We'll see if they actually do. But then also just, 2, like, we're talking playoffs, or if they're worried about seeding, like, what does the closing rotation look like? And is there a way for him to wedge his way in there? But look, I think there's even just, he's not a ball stopper either. I think that really helps them or I shouldn't say really helps, but, like, that's more of a vote of confidence in him. Like, he will keep the ball moving on offense. So even if the shot's not going down, he at least won't let you, like, he's not going to fuck up the spacing that way by holding onto the ball too long or trying to play outside of himself. So I've been mostly impressed with him, and I ended up going with a B. Like, he's contributing to a team that, like, has immediate aspirations.
Yeah, I'm right there. I gave him a B as well. One thing to just flag real quick. So he's played 282 minutes, has attempted 6 free throws, and the flag we're planting is that he's made 1. So if you're concerned about the shooting, the foul line stuff does tend to be a pretty decent predictor of 3-point accuracy. So if you are concerned that early season shooting is really fluky, like, that's a decent data point, tiny sample, but, like, also he's got to shoot more than 6 free throws in 280 minutes. Opportunity to be on the ball is like nil on this team. Even if Durant is out, because you've still got 2 other high usage guys, and Tyus Jones is going to have the ball. But, like, I think if you're going to play one of the wing positions, and you're not going to be an ace shooter, you got to, like, cut your way or do something offensive rebound your way to more than 6 free throw attempts in 15 games.
He needs to take a page out of a Kogi's notebook and be there for the offense.
Throw yourself in there.
Kling, Mr. Hughes. Donovan Clingan, who I've had to do mea culpas for him like 80 times already. But how do you feel about him?
I mean, lately, great for a minute. I mean, part of this is the roster makeup, right? Because there's 17 other centers, at least 2 of which the Blazers should hopefully trade, but it's taken a little while for Klingan to play. Now he's as 4 of his last 5 games, he's gotten over 20 minutes. He's just had like these statistical outbursts. The most recent game against the Rockets had 19 boards. He has at least 1 block in every game and at least 2 in each of the last 5. He had an 8 block game against the Wolves, which was a win for the Blazers back on November 13th. Offensive rebound, like I bet you he's got the most offensive rebounds among rookies, even though he sort of was just like not on the floor as I'm scrambling to look that up. He has 54 offensive boards. That leads all rookies. He's played like 100 fewer minutes than like Yves Missi, Sarr, all these other guys, and way fewer than guys like Risacher and on down the line. So he's been like, I don't know, maybe even a better version of what I thought he could be just lately now that he's playing. Because those, as an offensive rebounder and shot blocker, like you're helping on both ends. Like that's just what it is. Like the mobility stuff is an issue and all this other, like not going to be a spacer, obviously, but like, I don't know. I can see it on both ends. And to me, more than Edey was a question mark because of the size and because of his game. So, he's been really good lately, and I'm stock up and I'm buying.
Yeah, we both went B pluses here. I mean, opponents are shooting 50% against him at the rim. You probably could be a little bit troubled that he's shooting under 60% at the rim himself. So for a big, that's not ideal. But Portland's offense is just, we talk about having like a weird hierarchy in Houston. Like Portland has like a weird hierarchy now and terrible spacing and just not great on that side of the floor anyway. But he is averaging like, I think 1 point, last time I checked, he's at 1.25 points per possession as the pick and roll finisher. And like to do that within Portland spacing, he's at 1.36, Grant. I was wrong. That's the 89th percentile. So that's like, we're only talking about a possession and a half a game, but that's something to cling to. I'd like to see what he's going to wind up being on offense. And I think it's probably going to require, do they have the primary playmaker of the future who could work with him the best? Or do they need better spacing? Does he have any range? He's at 73% roughly from the foul line. He's 3 of 9 from 3. So like he's dabbled in it a little bit. I'm most curious about him on the offensive end, but I maintained coming into the draft that he wasn't going to be able to make an impact defensively. I was more confident in just Zach Edey being massive in the ground he could cover and just Donovan Clingan. He proved me wrong in summer league. I was already walking back everything I said. So he's been a great ad. And it's funny that I don't think this has been necessarily like the Portland media or like the people who cover and follow the team, but now the national media is like, man, like Portland would prefer to trade DeAndre Ayton rather than move Robert Williams III or Clingan. And it's, well, no shit. Like look at Ayton. Like that was the sentiment probably leading out of draft night.
The
like,
second they got him. Yeah, no, that's
right.
That's right. He makes, what does he make? 3x what Robert Williams makes or something like that. Of course you'd rather move him.
We love Clingan around these parts now. We also love Grant.
Oh yeah.
Stephon Castle. This is your guy.
I have just decided he's my guy among rookies, at least. So again, like another guy, how many times are we going to say this? A guy that came in with like shooting and offensive questions, most of which have not been answered. He's under 40% from the field, under 30% from 3. He has, like, as he's gotten a bigger role, ironically, and had to do more and play more, the shooting percentages have come up 33% from 3 as a starter. He started 10 of the 17 games he's played. So I guess that's encouraging, his usage and just like, I don't know, importance in the offense. As that has gone up, he's become more efficient. Again, he's another just eye test guy on both ends. Defensively, he's like a menace on the ball against guards. He's really, really tough. Moves incredibly well. Good size, strong, athletic, super quick. And then on the ball on offense, he has a burst that is like, it's one of those, like, you know it when you see it kind of things. Like he really is someone, I think, that is going to athletically overwhelm. And we've seen the highlight dunks, but I'm talking about like the subtler, like shift into 5th gear from like, whoa, like it, quick blink and he's past his guy or has created an advantage. Like that stuff jumps off the screen when you watch tape of him. So I get it. The shooting is going to be a question. We knew that, but just as an overall like potential high impact guy, like who's going to be an all-star out of this class, I think Castle is like very, very close to the top of that list for me. Different than a Knecht or a McCain because the production hasn't been there. But like just projecting forward, I don't know if there's someone I'd rather have than him.
Yeah, he's been interesting, and the shooting is still a concern. He's at sub 40 effective field goal percentage on pull-up jumpers, but they've had him spacing way out beyond the three-point line all season, and I initially thought he should come in, and it's like they were falling at a pretty high clip. There was like a 5 or 7 game span, and they've kind of pulled back now off of that. But if he's going to be comfortable taking them that far, as people pointed out to me, like if his jumper is going to take a little bit while to load, having him out that far could be a benefit because then defenses, they're going to have to close out further on to him. They're not going to stay. And if you're going to tether yourself to Stephon Castle 28 feet from the basket, that's going to open up things for everybody else. The passing's been, I know he can make some, I mean, shocker, he's a rookie who will have the ball in his hands at points. Like he's going to make mistakes with the ball. He's going to make bad passes. He's going to turn it over, and he has on his drives. He's turned it over. But I've also been, I wasn't sure if this guy profiled as like a floor general type. And I think having him learn from Chris Paul is going to end up being huge for them. So you kind of pair the offensive flickers and flashes. You mentioned the rim pressure already on offense, and like he's able to get to the basket because of using his speed and even coordination on the ball. On a Spurs team, again, there are sub lineups that are spacing the floor quite well, but like he's been in some pretty tight traffic jams in the games and possessions that I've watched. I'm way higher on him than I was. Like, I didn't think that the Spurs made a mistake, but when they picked him and you trade away the number 8 pick, I was just sort of like, this felt unspectacular, but now I kind of see the vision more. I do think though, the jumper is going to be the swing development for him, especially if you want to pair him with Wemby long-term.
I think like he's someone that if defenses have to guard him, like honestly, because, you know, it changes so much because he is so quick downhill to where it's like, it's a little bit like I think part of the reason Anthony Edwards is chucking a bunch of threes among others is like, he knows that if guys have to come out on him and are really on their toes leaning forward to contest threes, like he's going to overwhelm them athletically. And I think Edwards is like maybe in a class by himself, explosive wise, but like Castle can benefit the same way. It'd be different than like, so if Risacher is a 40% 3-point shooter, I don't know how much that really changes about the type of player we think he's going to be, because like he was thought to be like, oh, he'll be fine. He's going to be a good spacer. If Castle can really shoot it at all and make defenders come out and like have to account for him off the ball or like close out hard, like it's curtains, because he gets downhill and he'll make a good decision and or just dunk on the whole team. So shooting, you're dead right, is the swing skill for him, maybe more so than any other guy we've talked about.
Yeah, I mean, if this is someone who can hit pull-up mid-rangers or even just like set threes, you already mentioned it, like the ceiling there's an all-star there. So I went A-, you went A.
Yep.
Is there a case, like what would be the devil's advocate to go lower here?
I mean, if you're just not convinced that maybe what I'm pricing in is I think the shot is going to get better, just as evidenced by it's improved a little bit as the role has increased. Like I said, I don't know. You could give all the normal rookie knocks, but I don't know. It's just the shooting. Like you'd say, well, statistically, he's been a terrible offensive player, like, which is just true, but that's not going to swing me from the rest of the stuff that I've seen.
We have next up again with one of the Wizards' many rookies, which someone posted in our Discord the graphic or said that like the NBA account retweeted a tweet that had Washington rookies. I think it was Bilal Coulibaly and Kyshawn George. And it was, well, one of those guys is a rookie, I guess.
I'm guilty of lumping all 4 of those guys together, though. That's how I think of the Wizards. It's those 4 guys and like everybody else.
And even broadcast called me brought it up when we did our Wizards deep dive the other week. Was it like it wasn't the core 4, it was something else. You said it. You already forgot it.
Did I call it the core 4? I don't
Maybe
know.
That was it. I mean, they are. So
you know what? That's what the Wizard broadcast called it when one of the games early in the season. They called him the core 4. I'm like, all right, I guess we got a core 4.
Well, we begin with Bub Carrington.
So he's been the most productive offensive rookie of the group of their 3.5 rookies, I guess, if we're going to call Coulibaly half a rookie. He's just like already pretty clearly has like good craft, like now you can start to question like, well, how useful is it if he's able to kind of like worm his way into the lane and pin his guy on his back and get a pull up 2 or throw a lob to the guy in the dunker spot. that's even better if he's hitting his threes, which he basically is, like, well enough to be, honored as a 3-point threat. He just has good feel, good pick and roll ball handler, like got over 50 assists and 20 made threes. Not a lot of rookies doing that. He's getting over a steal a game. There's some two-way potential there. Good size. Like he feels like a potential, like, long-term starting point guard in the NBA, which is not always easy to see this early. Now, the grand Malcolm Brogdon showcase is upon us, so he's gone to the bench, unfortunately, for the Wizards because priorities. But I think he looks like a starter to me, just because of the feel and the craft with the ball. I think he's just like, that stuff doesn't go away. I think if you have that early, that's just going to be part of your whole makeup.
One of the things we flagged as a good thing was the pull-up 2-point percentage. It's still at like 51.8%. And he's taken almost 2 attempts from there per game. I like you said, the poise, the feel. He's got good size for both as a passer and then also just as, like, on the defensive end, is not someone who's going to get targeted overly. So one of the things I would like to see, and he's actually been, like, as a pick and roll scorer, I think he's in the 81st percentile of efficiency. I think he could stand to be a little bit more aggressive looking for his own shot at points. Like, he can be too deferential, I feel like, when he's getting downhill. But, like, as a rookie who's trying to probably prove that he can floor generalize the offense and add coherence to it, he's been fun. And I think we've been on the fence, like, on both sides of the Denny Avdia trade, like, gone back and forth a zillion times and probably will continue to. But when you watch him play, I think you start to like, if you're just comparing the first parts of the season, there's been bright spots in Portland. Don't get me wrong. And Denny's been great defensively for them. But, like, you kind of understand what the Wizards were thinking more than the Blazers at this point, I think.
Oh yeah, it's way easier from the Wizards side just to get a first rounder and another first round asset. And Carrington is probably, I don't know, I guess he probably has outplayed Avdia just because Avdia shot it so poorly. I got him A minus. I think I'm really encouraged. He's super low usage, as you pointed out. Like, you'd like to see him be a little more aggressive. That's fine. We can fix that. Like, that's just the offensive package feels real enough that I'm not concerned he's going to be a 15% usage guy going forward. He's going to do more.
I went B+ because I'm a hater. So Wizards fans call me a hater. He's going to be really good, though. Like, there's the redraft of this class, and we'll probably have to do one like 2 weeks from now or something. Who knows? But it's going to be fascinating. Kyshawn George. Also, we're just going to claim ownership of the Wizards core at this point. I feel like nationally, we've been infatuated with their core more so than the consensus, right? We could take ownership.
Well, yeah,
let us know if we're allowed to do that.
The Koulibaly thing last year, we're just like, couldn't get enough of them.
I forgot to include Koulibaly in these rookie grades. I'm sorry, guys.
So George is, I mean, we've obviously not gotten to Sarr yet. That's the higher profile one, but George is, I don't know, he's really interesting because you shouldn't be able to get this type of guy where they got him, which is to say, now, again, like almost everybody here, the numbers are bad, like just inefficient, 35% from the field, 28 from three, doesn't get to the line a ton, but he's playing 27 minutes a game. He's had these stretches where he can hit, this may have only happened once or twice, but multiple threes in a row, and they look good, and he's confident, and it just creates a version of the Wizards that otherwise does not exist. Big wing / combo forward size, competes like hell defensively, could just theoretically be like a scalable 3-and-D guy, or maybe more than that. So again, like this is the one of the, because Carrington was kind of a known commodity. Sarr, we had a rough idea of what he would be. This is like the found money player, right? Like this is the one where, oh man, they got a third rookie in here that might actually be a starter long term. So I guess in a way, most impressed by George, even if that has a lot to do with like where we set our expectations to begin with.
Yeah, he is. You mentioned, is he just sort of a plug and play prospect, or will he wind up doing more? I feel like this is someone who can wind up doing more. Grant, he's 5th. And this is just leading into what I've probably been most surprised about. We talked about feel with Bub. Kyshawn George is 5th in assists off drives among rookies. And there's a better passer there than I thought. I think they've done a good job of, okay, he looks the archetype of someone who maybe once he gets stronger can do more defensively, but they haven't tried to overtax him on that end. Well, I mean, they have fellow rookie Bilal Koulibaly just to do that and wreak havoc on the defensive end. So I like kind of the way they're using him too. You would like to see the offensive efficiency as a scorer though tick up. And I think maybe as the Wizards as a team get a little bit better, that'll be easier for him. But this is someone who I think there's like real, I'd like to see him shoot more than like 20% or whatever it is on his catch and shoot threes. I think he'll get there. But there might just be more on-ball work to plumb from him. And I actually do think, though, while the passing's impressed me the most, I don't know what he profiles as defensively, though.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I wanted to get, you brought a stat I wanted to mention mine. He's got 44 assists this year. Now he's played a fair amount, but there are 3 point guards among rookies ahead of him and Jared McCain. So and he's like a big wing. So to get any kind of facilitation like that out of him is a huge bonus. I mean, we've probably spent too long on him and at the expense of Sarr, but I don't know. I'm mostly encouraged by him. I think George is going to be a player.
What do we go with B pluses across the board for Kyshawn George?
I think that's right. I can't remember. It's either a B or a B plus for me.
We are on to Mr. Alex Sarr, who is the main attraction for the Washington Wizards. Grant, how are you feeling about him?
I feel semi-encouraged defensively. I can see the vision of he's pretty mobile. He's been a solid shot blocker. Klingan's the only rookie that's got more swats than him. Rebounds okay. I just offensively, I don't know what this guy's going to be. Which is kind of, well, I don't know. Maybe that's not fair to say that was a draft profile, but it was really more like what position can he play? And that had to do with, well, is he going to be a spacer? Is he going to be someone who attacks off the dribble? Is this like a Giannis model? Who is this guy offensively? I don't feel like we're any closer to knowing that, but I do think like whatever comps I might throw out there offensively for him are quite a bit below some of the names that had been mentioned. So, it's kind of a split thing. Defensively, I get it. Like, I think he's going to be fine. He could even be very good. Offensively, the finishing inside, he gets knocked off his spot a lot. The 3-point shot, I don't trust. I don't know what he is offensively. So it's kind of down the middle for me.
Yeah, I'm with you right there. He's been, and it's funny because like you wonder if he's more physical on offense, like that would be the pathway for him to do maybe more of the traditional big man stuff there. He's been more physical than I would have expected defensively. And so that's like, I guess that booms him, like that gives him sort of a nudge up there. He's contesting over 47% of all shots at the basket while he's on the court. I think that's a really good number for a rookie. He has had, do you think, so when you dig into the offense though a little bit, because defensively, I think he's just going to be fine. Like there's someone who's not going to get hung out to dry on the perimeter. I think he's shown that, right, this isn't even his strongest final form yet. And this is someone who can at least be a reasonable to really good rim protector and break up stuff, on the back line. Do you think like they're not having him do enough big man stuff? Like, are they too reliant on, all right, let's have him like he's taking mid-rangers, he's taking 3-pointers, he's taking over 50 threes from above the break and made only 8 of them. Only 20% of his offensive possessions are coming as the pick and roll man. And again, he's averaging 0.3 points per possession in those situations. So that's really bad for anyone who doesn't know that. But would they benefit from, hey, let's maybe use him more like a big man? I just like not. I mean, a traditional or conventional big man type usage. Yeah,
like under a quarter of his shots come inside 3 feet, and a lot of that is 40+% come from deep. But there's just too many of the in between things. And I mean, yeah, it would be nice if there were evidence to suggest this guy makes more sense as like a high volume role guy. Let's throw lobs up to him. That's the other thing is his athleticism is not like, not jaw dropping. Like he's not rising over everybody to catch lobs. He's same thing with like finishing inside. He's not coming up and finishing over the top of players. So I think like what they're having him do on offense, I think is kind of just playing to, relatively speaking, his strengths. I think the theory of him that is most like plausible and I guess optimistic is he is just like a multi-position defensive. Rebounds okay. Offensively, I don't know what this guy's going to be. Which is kind of, well, I don't know. Maybe that's not fair to say that was a draft profile, but it was really more like what position can he play? And that had to do with, well, is he going to be a spacer? Is he going to be someone who attacks off the dribble? Is this like a Giannis model? Who is this guy offensively? I don't feel like we're any closer to knowing that, but I do think like whatever comps I might throw out there offensively for him are quite a bit below some of the names that had been mentioned. So, it's kind of a split thing. Defensively, I get it. Like, I think he's going to be fine. He could even be very good. Offensively, the finishing inside, he gets knocked off his spot a lot. The 3-point shot, I don't trust. I don't know what he is offensively. So it's kind of down the middle for me.
Yeah, I'm with you right there. He's been, and it's funny because like you wonder if, okay, if he's more physical on offense, like that would be the pathway for him to do maybe more of the traditional big man stuff there. He's been more physical than I would have expected defensively. And so that's like, I guess that booms him, like that gives him sort of a nudge up there. He's contesting over 47% of all shots at the basketball he's on the court. I think that's a really good number for a rookie. He has had like, do you think so when you dig into the offense though a little bit, because defensively I think he's just going to be fine. Like there's someone who's not going to get hung out to dry on the perimeter. I think he's shown that, right, this isn't even his strongest final form yet, and this is someone who can at least be a reasonable to really good rim protector and break up stuff, excuse me, on the back line. Do you think like they're not having him do enough big man stuff? Like, are they too reliant on, all right, let's have him like he's taking mid-rangers, he's taking 3-pointers, he's taking over 50 threes from above the break and made only 8 of them. Only 20% of his offensive possessions are coming as the pick and roll man. And again, he's averaging 0.3 points per possession in those situations. So that's really bad for anyone who doesn't know that. But would they benefit from, hey, let's maybe use him more like a big man?
I just
like it's not, I mean, a traditional or conventional big man type usage.
Yeah, like under a quarter of his shots come inside 3 feet. And a lot of that is 40+% come from deep. But there's just too many of the in-between things. And I mean, yeah, it would be nice if there were evidence to suggest this guy makes more sense as like a high volume role guy. Let's throw lobs up to him. That's the other thing, is his athleticism is not like, not jaw dropping. Like he's not rising over everybody to catch lobs. He's and same thing with like finishing inside. He's not coming up and finishing over the top of players. So I think like what they're having him do on offense, I think is kind of just playing to, relatively speaking, his strengths. I think the theory of him that is most like plausible and I guess optimistic is he is just like a multi-position defensive weapon, like that can also defend the rim. And on offense, he's like a spacer down the line that maybe can attack off the dribble. I'm not seeing the interior game, like the feel, the physicality. Like I'm not seeing that yet. So it would be nice, but so far it's hard for me to imagine what that would look like if it were to ever show up. So I give him a C. You're a C+. I think we're kind of the same mind that it's like, if we could grade his defensive rookie season, it's like B+, A-, and the other end is probably close to an F.
It's almost wondering, even if he gets to a point where he's either or, rather than thinking he's one of those guys that can serve the dual role of, oh, he's going to set screens, he can catch the ball and make decisions with it role, or even if he's just the pick and pop option, if he has to commit to a lane and ends up hitting in one of those rather than having to straddle both lines, that ends up being a big deal for him based off, again, the defensive indicators from him as a rookie. On to the Utah Jazz. Have 2 names for them. This one hurts. I feel like I should be absolved from talking about it. Cody Williams, Grant.
I mean, not a lot to. Can I do my Cody Williams impression? You ready?
Yeah.
I disappeared.
No, that's so mean.
That's like, I mean, I want to get his usage rate right. I think it's it's like under 11.4% usage rate.
Hey, hold on. Could we just at least note that that's higher than 11.3?
It is true. If there's a rookie out there with an 11.3% usage rate, you disappear. So he just he didn't shoot in his 19-minute debut as a rookie way back in October. And that was a sign in hindsight. Like there are long stretches of Jazz games where he's just not doing anything, not scoring, not looking to score, not making impact plays on either end. So this was the wrap on him a little bit, I think. It just has carried over. So it's a weird thing to criticize because it's like, well, he's a rookie. He's trying to find his way. He's trying not to play outside himself, but this is too far in that direction to where it's you worry that is he ever going to be someone that is a reasonable volume scorer that impacts the game? He looks like a player. He's got a good frame. He's lean. He moves well. All the stuff that was true before he was drafted. It's just he just isn't impacting the game. So I don't know what to do with that. It's not like he's been terrible. He's not actively hurting anybody. Although some of the advanced metrics would say he has been. He's just not doing anything.
And I think the word you're looking for is just too passive. And that's what's disappointing to me is that I think this was they had earmarked this as he was coming out of the draft. But when I watched him, I was like, oh, there's a fluidity on the ball. We've seen some aggressive moments from him, mostly before this season. This can work. But like Grant, he's passing on more of his drives than are ending in like a shot attempt or free throw. And that's just, it'd be admirable if all those passes were turning into assists. They're not. And like he's made some nice passes, but I really thought that he would be both empowered and have the ability to be more aggressive as an offensive player. I think defensively as a rookie, he's not even close to the best defensive rookie. I want to make that clear, but like they've rolled him out against some tougher assignments. Like he does shoulder like a fairly sizable workload relative to other rookies. This has been an unspectacular debut campaign for him. And if he doesn't, and Tony Jones, the Athletic, said this to me when we were doing the Utah Jazz look ahead, and it's almost annoying how much it rings true. I love Tony, to be clear. I'm annoyed at how right he is this late into the season, to where it's like Cody Williams needs to realize that he's good at basketball. And that feels like an oversimplification. And it's just the deference. He's overly deferential. It's just too passive. And it makes you feel that I don't necessarily consider him a low energy guy, but with the amount of vanishing acts, it feels like he's turned it on offense where you don't feel him, or with someone who doesn't seem to trust his own like scoring ability. Or I think people can obviously conflate that with, well, is there a lack of aggression? So we need to see him just be, the word is, can he be more aggressive overall? I graded this pretty hard. I went with a D- because I picked him to finish top 3 in Rookie of the Year. And so my expectations for Cody Williams are and will remain high, but I guess I'm distraught.
Yeah, it's tough. I gave him a D, and I would just say that all of the qualities that recommended him highly as a draft prospect are still there. So it's just like whatever this is, whether it's like a confidence issue or just like you said, he's just passive. Get past that, and all the tools and all the projected, like all that stuff is still there, right? Like it's just this first month has been really, really tough.
I fave it. Just get past it. That's you get over it. That's your best. I'm here for it. We're on to his teammate, Kyle Filipowski. How you feel about him, Grant?
I mean, he's got several starts.
Been notable enough to be included in this exercise.
Right. He made the exercise. Well, I mean, we're going to do Cody Williams. We got to just not totally dump on the Jazz. He's just been a more balanced contributor than Williams, or, a lot of other rookies. He had a double-digit points in 3 of the last 4 games, 3 of his 4 games between November 12th and 17th. He can do a little bit of everything. He's got a 6-assist game, getting a couple steals. Just like a guy that, when he went in the second round, granted the first pick of the second round, I think it was 31st. Everybody was kind of like, well, that's a good value there, because he is like a multi-skilled contributor with good size. He's and just like is going to be able to contribute right away, and like has just kind of rounded into a role where he's doing more and making a bigger impact than certainly Williams and Isaiah Collier, who's another Jazz rookie we're not really going to talk about, but like there's a minute there where Collier was a top 5 pick when people were mocking up drafts. So for Filipowski to have exceeded both of them, I think it's a pretty good value.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's shooting almost 60% on drives, Grant, and he's used like quite a few of them relative to playing. What is he at? Like 266 minutes as we record this. What have you thought about him defensively?
I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to have watched like a ton of Kyle Filipowski defensive film. I would say better than I expected, but I did not expect a ton.
From the outside, so I watched in anticipation of doing this. From the outside in, like from the outside, okay, like, oh, there's more. I don't want to say the word wing. There's more mobility there, I guess. Yeah. If you're going to need to make plays around the basket, it's just not happening. So that's, but again, he didn't profile as like a caps lock big, but they're running into this weird situation where I feel like they have a bunch of non-centers who aren't quite wings.
And I'm already got John Collins. What are you going to do with
and then also like Larry Markkinen, I guess he's a non-center and I guess he meets the wing criteria, but this is not, I was curious what his role was going to be. I guess I don't know if that's like overshot. I think he's been more productive than I would have guessed. And so I went with a B.
To your point, the 0.7% block rate for a quote unquote big is not going to cut it. Yeah. I gave him a B as well.
Kyshawn George is contesting a higher percentage of opponent shots when on the floor than Kyle Filipowski is. And I will say that number is not for a lack of proximity when you're looking at where Kyle Filipowski may end on certain defensive possessions. So that will wrap up the ones we're doing like dives on. Were there any, we have some notes, like a couple others that we didn't have the time to get to. what name stands out? We could go back and forth on which one we would do as our.
Yeah. So Tristan da Silva has started a ton of games since Paolo Banchero got hurt for the Magic, and I think it's fair to say he's like a connective player, that the three ball is a huge part of his game, and it's 34% so far. But defenses treat him like a shooter, so that's kind of half the battle. And he's just like making good connective passes. Has good yet another like big forwardy wingy guy that the Magic can just put the ball in the hands of and expect good results offensively. So they're kind of cornering the market on that player type. He's just been a very good rookie and a solid overall contributor for a team that is in the top 4 in the East. Like that's huge. He's another name that I think got overlooked as like, well, what's the upside for this guy coming into the draft, or coming out of the draft, I should say. But he's made as big an impact as, maybe bigger. I'm trying to think of like what other, maybe you'd point to Wells as the guy who's made an impact on like a pretty good team. But Da Silva's been awesome.
Yeah, no, he's been really good. And I think it helps. What is he only at? Like he's at sub 35% from 3, but when you have
34,
but that number is pretty good when you have KCP shooting like 8% from 3. That's an exaggeration for anyone who's watching. I want to shout out Yves Missi. Pelicans fans can take the victory lap in the sense they were telling us he was going to have a role in his first year, but they've also been obliterated by injuries. And I think you could maybe argue that, well, it's weird that he hasn't even played more minutes than that. He plays with a lot more like force and thrust and physicality than I was kind of expecting here. Does feel like he needs a little bit more honing if you're going to try and use him as like a screener and then finisher out of that, but it's just someone who's going to battle defensively and make his presence felt. I think he's been, I don't know if this is just relative to circumstances, but he's been really good, or at least someone who's standing out.
I would throw into the Raptors have 3 rookies that have played a fair amount. Jonathan Mobo is like a very undersized to like Montrezl Harrell extent, maybe even smaller as a big energy player, can grab and go, has kind of mucks up the game in a good way. And then Jamal Shead hasn't shot it well at all, is a good distributor, plays hard on defense, but the size is like, he's just a very undersized guard. So I don't know what that ceiling is going to be, but he's played a lot, way up there among rookies in total assists this year.
Jamal Shead's a psychopath on the defensive end.
Yeah, he plays really hard. The size is like, is it a Davion Mitchell, who ironically Davion Mitchell is on his team? Like, is it where he's a one position defender that, the ball also like Mitchell, if he can't make threes, like, I don't know what you do with him offensively. But I still like both of those guys. And then Jamison Battle is shooting 40% from 3, like just a third guy that is helpful as a first year player. I think Mobo is my favorite of the group just because, was Jacoby Walter, right? Like he hasn't done much, but
he's injured still, isn't he?
Yeah. I know that he has the lowest minute total. I haven't kept up with he's been out. But Mobo is my favorite of the group just because you can see like the impact he makes just as a activity guy. So I like that.
That's a good one. AJ Mitchell on a 2-way. I don't think were you expecting to see him like as much as you have through the first early part of the season? Even if you would have said, okay, there's going to be injuries. Did you just think that AJ Mitchell was going to be, what does he rank in minutes played at this point? I think he's in like the top 25. He's 18 in total minutes. So like, that's not, you have to just shut that out by virtue of being on the court. He's kind of another one where I said leading into the season that he reminds me of like, what if TJ McConnell played with a moral compass type deal? And like, there's like a real, you can say this about everyone on the Thunder, but the 2 things I think have stood out is that, all right, this guy's going to compete defensively. And then I do think there's like some exploration to like explore as a passer. I don't think that he's ever going to be, I would question, right, like, what is this guy when it comes to generating his own shots? What is he going to look like as a scorer moving forward? But as someone who just might be able to direct these possessions, I think you have to be encouraged with like just some of the flashes you've seen there from him. And to counter my own point, like he is scoring 1.5 points per possession as the pick and roll ball handler right now. Oh, excuse me, it's 0.96. I feel a little bit better. 75th percentile. So like he's been able to come in and just do stuff for them. And I'll be curious to see like if you can get a little bit of the turnover stuff when he's working in traffic or in slower down sets. But like they just might have a player there. Shocker. OKC might just have a player.
Do you have any quick thoughts on the Knicks guys, Kolek or Dadier or even Hukporti? Like they actually have like played a fair amount for a Thibodeau.
Well,
team.
I mean, look at their depth. Hakeem Dadier is just kind of intriguing. He's played with a lot of just kind of defensive panache, like is there. And so I'm curious to see what he would look like in if you're going to play on this team, what do you kind of look like offensively? Is it just someone who you hope can space the floor there? Tyler Kolek, I know a lot of people thought he was going to be in the running for maybe beating out Campaign for minutes. Campaign's been too good for that to happen. He does, I don't want to use the word deer in headlights. Like, he's a fantastic passer, but like, he hasn't moved I think when you looked at all the Knicks rookies, you probably thought he was going to have the biggest impact. I think you can argue that he's been the least impressive of the three. Don't know too much what to make of Ariel Hukporti just yet. There's like, if you wanted to ever use a big in this way under Tom Thibodeau, okay, there might be more of a short roll passer there than we're seeing. And he's had some really good moments when it comes to like deterring shots or just swatting away shots at the basket. Last I looked, opponents are shooting 52.7% or 53.7, whatever it is, at him at the rim. So they've been fun. I don't think, like, what were your expectations for them? I think Hukporti and Dottie have exceeded expectations just by virtue of how much you've had to turn for them. I argue some Knicks might feel that Kolek has missed expectations, but that bar was just set too high for him.
Yeah. Trying to think if there's anyone else.
I was going to say Oso Ighodaro. We probably could have mentioned him when we were doing Ryan Dunn. Like, if you're going to look for like some of Phoenix's more switchable lineups, it does feel like he has the ability to work within those. And he probably gives you, am I going too far saying he gives you more offensive dynamism than Ryan Dunn at this point, if you were looking for that offensive optionality?
Yeah, he's got a weird like in between game that I think is kind of plays well. Who's another? I was going to mention disappointed Khalil Ware or Khalil. I'm never going to remember which. Remember in maybe it was Summer League where he was really showing out. And he's like, look, great size, like athletic, flirting with a 3-point shot. Like, is he going to start next to Bam? And he's played under 50 minutes on the year. Pelle Larsson has played more than him, which I did not have on the rookie minutes bingo card.
I just want to say that I did. Well, I don't know if I had him getting minutes. I was pretty high on Pelle Larsson. He gets an A+ for me if we were going to grade those
shooting it great.
Anybody else that were kind of, and any of the Warriors rookies that you need to get into?
Haven't seen a lot of Quentin Post. Reese Beekman, I think, played like 3 or 4 minutes. Win a couple games. That's about it. Unless you're interested.
Taylor Steierman, how you feeling about him?
Just do I want to do his G League numbers?
Johnny Furphy?
He could play at some point. I think that is a real case of like, there's just not minutes for him because this team, the Celtics, are too good.
I'm actually, we mentioned AJ Mitchell. We didn't mention Dylan Jones. I mean, we're talking about players who need like a jump shot swing skill. He's 4 of 23 from 3 on the season and shooting only 3 of 6 at the foul line. Just something to, I guess, if you have AJ Mitchell, do you need Dylan Jones? But just
well, and like, I mean, the highest pick the Thunder made, Topic, like obviously isn't going to play this season, but if you're grading their whole rookie class between Mitchell having just these ridiculous measured against expectation contributions and Topic is just sitting there like theoretically coming into a role next year, looking pretty good.
Like, why did if Topic was healthy, because Dylan Jones has played 126 minutes, they would just have found a way for Topic to get minutes at this. They just find ways to get guys minutes on this team. Yeah. It's incredible. That's it for me, unless you have anything else. I'm
scanning. I don't think, I know Antonio Reeves for the Pelicans had like a 30-something point game out of absolutely nowhere within the last week or so. But I think we've probably covered 30 plus. Are you ready? Guys.
What about Trey Alexander replacing Jamal Murray? Are you there yet?
His 29 minutes on the season? Not quite. I could get there at some point. But yeah, good job by us just talking about this many rookies this early in the season as if any of this is set in stone.
Good job by us.
I think that's going to do it though. Everybody, thanks for let us know if there's a rookie we probably should have covered. I'll be impressed if you can come up with one that has played at all. That
I think the Raptors fans will be mad that their guys didn't get their own slides, but we've focused a ton on the Raptors. We were trying to really just spread the love here. I'm sure Bella Shireman people will be very angry.
All my Raptors thoughts go into RJ Barrett and his most improved player case. So I don't really have room for the rookies.
And apologies for not being able to get to rookie Bilal Coulibaly. That's a miss.
Next, we should do a whole episode on guys that aren't rookies that we just call. That's going to do it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Make sure if you haven't already, rate, review, subscribe, 5 stars, thumbs up, comment on YouTube, help the algorithm love us back. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, join our Discord. Links for that in the YouTube and podcast description. It's going to do it for our 1 month in rookie report cards. Sorry if we were too harsh, and maybe next time we'll be a little kinder as these guys get deeper into their careers. Shouts Frank Ntilikina. Apologies, Jared Allen.